In the headlines, international experts to gather here for a regional aviation conference. Government requests more time to respond to local construction sector concerns, and witnesses continue to testify in the Asha James murder trial. I am Andrea Louis with the Channel 5 News, back with the details after this. Thank you for staying with us. First up, a specialist in strategic communication is behind a first-ever Caribbean Aviation Meetup conference to be hosted by the Ministry of Tourism and Urban Renewal and the Discover Dominica Authority in June. More in this report.
Bud Slabert is currently involved in aviation and airport development matters in the Caribbean. Because of his media initiatives, he has become a main contact for international aviation journalists. In the past, he was instrumental in international promotion and business aviation expansion for a number of Swiss airports and considered a specialist in business aviation development in the airport scene in Europe. As the initiator of the Caribbean Aviation Meetup Conference, he says he has seen what is missing and needed in the region, and he has seen positive developments that could be enhanced and should be promoted. He said it took only 2 days to receive a positive response from the Tourism Minister of Dominica and had a teleconference with the CEO of the Tourism Authority the next morning. He says, I quote, "I will be confronted with some logistical challenges by holding the meetup on the island of Dominica, but isn't that what air transportation and related services are all about? Being able to face and deal with challenges will lead to strength," end quote. The June 14 to 16 conference will involve discussions on changes for improved airlift in the Caribbean and its impact on tourism and the economy. It will also provide impetus for new business developments and industry investments. Experts from Canada, St. Barth's, and the US will present at the forum. A new Caribbean Aviation Industry Association will be inaugurated at the conference. It will be an umbrella organization representing all aviation interests in the Caribbean region. Idona John Baptist, Channel 5 News.
The Joint Consultative Committee on the Construction Sector has agreed to government's request for more time to respond to its pre-action protocol letter on the awarding of the contract for the Westbridge project. Keisha Nicholas has that story.
The committee, which represents builders and engineers, had given the Prime Minister a 4 p.m. deadline on Wednesday to respond, threatening legal action on the matter if a reply was not forthcoming. President of the committee, Anthony Liebler, says a legal advisor for government has made contact with them, asking for an extension of time to respond to the letter addressed to the Prime Minister, challenging the legality of the bridge contract awarded to the Barbadian company. One of the committee's justification is that there are local companies competent enough to undertake the reconstruction of the bridge. The committee has repeatedly raised concern about the awarding of contracts to foreign companies. On the issue of government's move to replace the Public Procurement Act, Liebler says he's not surprised.
First of all, it's not a surprise to us that the act is going to be repealed or modified, amended. There were issues that we had with the existing act, but at the end of the day, it is better to have half a loaf of an act that needs improvement than to have no act. And we are delighted that the government sees it fit to improve on the act. We do not believe that it's going to have any effect on the case, since the existing act is in place and cannot be repealed until the new act is in place and has gone through the parliamentary procedures and everything else. The disappointment that we have is after years of asking for dialogue on the new regulations, dialogue on what are the issues that the government have or its consultant have with the act, the present act, and so we can trade notes and we can understand what are the issues and they can more fully understand our issues. As yet, there have been no attempt at an openness by the government and no attempt at dialogue with the private sector and the new act.
Libla says he's hoping that this time around the government will consult them during the repeal and replace process of the act.
We have been calling for dialogue for a very long time. During the build stage of the present act, we called for dialogue. We had some, not adequate. I don't think we had adequate dialogue. And we have asked for dialogue and training with respect to the act. We have not gotten any. The small players in private sectors are still pretty much, except for what we have brought up to the public, ignorant. There has been very little public dialogue or training by the public sector in terms of the Procurement Act. And we're hoping that this time around there will be an improvement.
The Association of Professional Engineers, Dominica Society of Architects and Builders and Contractors Association of Dominica make up the Joint Consultative Committee on the Construction Sector. Keisha Nicholas, Channel 5 News.
A plan of action has been formulated by the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities for presentation to government to drive the establishment of a National Disability Council. Idona Baptist explains.
The DAPD wants to meet with government to once again impress the need for a disability council to start the process to implement the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Government officially endorsed that UN Convention in 2012. However, DAPD laments that actual measures to observe it has not been put into effect by the state.
And this is one of the issues that we will be taking up with government, because this is a mechanism that is provided for in the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. This Monitoring and Implementation Committee forms part of the convention that all countries who ratify the convention must establish. Persons with disabilities have a right to equal participation, to education, to work, to employment.
The government-appointed council would also make up people with disabilities. DAPD's plan of action is expected to be the work program for the council when it is created.
And in spite of the fact that, concrete and practical things have not taken place, but we have been working with the consultant, Martin Anthony, who has been assigned by the Ministry of Social Services, Community Development and Family Affairs, of course the government of Dominica, to work with us to move the process forward. We have our plan of action, we are looking at the budget that will be required for the implementation of whatever activities that we will be undertaking, and all that has to be approved by the government, and the resources have to come from the state as well. So without the council, we, in spite of the fact that we have everything ready, we cannot work.
Dominica signed the convention in 2007 and ratified it 5 years after. Idona Baptist, Channel 5 News.
The family and friends of Dominican students studying in Venezuela are being assured that they are safe as the country is in the midst of social, political, and economic collapse. Keisha Nicholas has more.
The country of 30 million people is facing dire food and medicine shortages, frequent power outages, serious political unrest, the world's highest inflation rate, rampant violent crime, and one of the world's highest murder rates. Earlier this month, Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro declared a state of emergency. In short, Venezuela has become the world's most visibly failing state. According to reports, several students from St. Vincent and other countries have reported being robbed by armed masked men. Education Minister Peter Saint-Jean says his ministry has been in constant contact with Dominican students there and has assured the public that they have not been affected. While the Vincentian government announced plans to offer its students a one-way ticket to return home this summer in light of the situation in Venezuela, Saint-Jean says a statement on Dominica's decision will be made public at the appropriate time. Other Caribbean students have been expressing concerns about food shortages and lack of medicine in Venezuela. Currently, Dominica does not have a students' association in Venezuela. Therefore, all students' concerns are handled directly by the Ministry of Education. Keisha Nicholas, Channel 5 News.
An institution which sources funding for and supervises small projects on island is currently putting its master plan together before it takes on more developmental projects. The GEF Small Grants Program is funded by the Global Environment Facility, GEF, and implemented by the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, to support community action to achieve global environmental benefits. National Coordinator of GEF Small Grants Program says the organization may be able to start receiving project applications from as early as September.
Presently, we are in the operational phase 6, and we are in the process of developing our country program strategy. So at present, we're not looking at reviewing or receiving any concepts or projects for the new phase. Hopefully, we should be able to get our strategy approved in June, and then we can put out a call for concepts, and then we can select the concepts and work with the organizations to develop the full proposals. So probably by September, I hope we will be able to start approving projects.
The maximum funding any one project can receive is US $50,000. While not currently undertaking any projects, Esprit says GEF continues to lend support to projects which have already been started and established.
For example, we have the Apiculture Development Project, which is a national project supporting the beekeepers to build on what they have been doing as small organizations to do a national level beekeeping project. We are working with the Mount Prosper Women Farmers in Action. We are working with the Agriculture Women Movement, Bell's Farmers Group. We continue working with the Girodel Flower Growers Group and other organizations to enable them to utilize the resources in their communities to conserve, protect the environment, and at the same time ensure that they can utilize them in a sustainable way for their own livelihoods.
Coming up, how farmers can begin to position themselves to capitalize on Jungle Bay Resort at Soufriere. Welcome back. The murder trial of 23-year-old Asha James is into its third day. James is accused of killing Kenny George of Wharton Waven on 20th September 2013. Idona Jean-Baptiste reports.
On Thursday, the prosecution led by State Attorneys Sherma Dalrymple, along with Fernellia Felix and Kalita Benjamin, called Nakita George and Ronald Shane George to the stand. Nakita spoke about her encounter with Asha James that night. She recalled meeting him at a bar and later on the road running with a cutlass in his hand using obscene language. She told the court she later met her cousin on the road and James passed by again speaking loudly. Asked what happened, she said he replied, "I gave him what he wanted, he got what he wanted." When asked who, he replied Bossy, which was Kenny George's nickname. During Ronald George's testimony, it was put to him that his cousin, the deceased, made threats to James. However, he denied that his cousin was walking with a cutlass and had threatened to kill Asha James. A 3-man, 6-woman jury is hearing the matter presided over by High Court Judge Errol Thomas. Judge Thomas has been constantly reminding jurors that they should not discuss the case with anyone and should only listen to evidence heard in the courtroom. Last week, Judge Thomas aborted the Michel Toussé murder trial, which was into its third day. Toussé is accused of killing his brother Alexis Toussé in November 2011 with a cutlass over a land dispute. Reports are that a member of the jury panel was heard by a police officer making certain comments about the case, and the matter was reported to State Attorney Fernellia Felix, who then reported it to the judge. Consequently, the jury was dismissed and the matter was traversed to the next session of the criminal court following a brief investigation.
Research by the Division of Agriculture has revealed an increase in crop-threatening pests as a result of climate change. The increase in agricultural pests could have a notable negative influence on the country's agricultural sector if not addressed and managed properly. Plant Protection and Quarantine Officer Ryan Anselm told Channel 5 News the agriculture sector continues to play a key role as an income earner for Dominica.
Our research activities in the field has suggested that we have an increase in pest problems. Pest problems I speak about is, we can speak about the black sigatoka disease, the citrus greening, and because of climate change, what we have seen over the years is an increase in traditional pests. Pests that was not of economic importance, they are becoming of concern to the Ministry of Agriculture.
Anselm says the entire farming community and Dominicans in general need to play their part in combating the increase in crop-threatening pests.
We cannot do things as usual. We have to practice smart agriculture. I specifically want to address the recent issue at the Tibu playing field, where we had an increase in armyworms. Armyworms are an insect pest that is very tiny, that can cause serious problems to vegetation. What they normally do is to eat all the leaves, all the vegetative part of the plants. I also want to commend the Portsmouth Agricultural Station in promptly arresting the situation. They spread the diazinon, and there was significant control of that pest.
The plant protection officer is encouraging farmers to adjust their farming practices as a means of minimizing the impact of pests on agricultural produce.
Crop rotation is key in fighting pests and diseases. For example, farmers are planting tomatoes or even cabbage for 5 or 6 years. The practice is that after a year or two, you rotate with another crop. And sometimes farmers are planting the same family. For example, they're planting tomatoes, and then they're planting, the next crop they're planting is potatoes. They are of the same family. They will have the same pest problems in the soil and in the field.
Farmers of the Soufriere constituency may want to strongly consider practicing organic farming to supply the Jungle Bay Resort and Spa proposed for that area.
About 50 farmers will be needed to supply the resort. An organic farmer of Dalis, Alan George, used the platform of a recent meeting in Soufriere about the hotel development to ask the Prime Minister to consider allocating funds to push organic agriculture. He says the hotel's owner has a preference for organic produce.
I know a lot of people is talking about organic agriculture, but Mr. My friend the PM, I hope you have to, maybe in your next budget, I don't know about it, but to put some funding aside to promote organic agriculture. Because Sam Raphael, what he wants, if we get all his produce into organic, he would welcome it, right? I used to be one of his suppliers, right? And his people would come to my farm and pick their own mangoes and cut their own sugarcane because they know they are not going into herbicides and pesticides and all those things. Everything they got on my farm was organic, and that's what Mr. Raphael wants.
The project will start in 6 months. Part of the hotel is scheduled to open in November 2018.
We won't be producing the food that we serve. That food we are looking towards the people of Point Michel and Soufriere to produce, which is what we did on the other side. But we will need people to farm, and maybe the PM will talk about some of the economic spin-offs because he knows, you know, it's between the farmers, the people that fish, the people who provide all types of services. We need a lot of entrepreneurs around that will provide those services because not everything the hotel will provide. And so on. So there are about 50 farmers and entrepreneurs that we will, so it's about 150 households permanently that this project will support. And again, the project was financed under the Citizenship and Investment Program.
While the government and the people of Dominica have been commended for their increased recognition of African Liberation Day, the House of Nyabingi hopes to see improved celebrations over the years. Representative of the House of Nyabingi, Bernard Imani Shaw, says though significant strides have been made to appreciate the link between the African heritage and the country, there is a lot more that can be done to increase the importance of African Liberation Day.
It is indeed heartening that today government can recognize the purpose of African Liberation Day. Yet we need to go further. African Liberation Day needs to be highlighted as a day foremost in our quest for peace, justice, and prosperity. The government and people must pause, meditate, re-inspire, and reinvigorate their minds towards its success. It must be seen as a national observation and remembrance of the spirit of our ancestors.
This year's celebration was held under the theme, Unity is Strength, Cooperation Brings Success. Minister for Culture believes that African Liberation Day is proof that change can be effected through strength in unity.
Caribbean people have contributed immensely to the liberation of the African continent through financial, material, military, political, academic, and social means. These contributions show that no matter how small we are as a people, a nation, or a country, we can make a difference. We are aware that the African community of nations face many challenges. We too face similar challenges. We must therefore all stand together in the face of common challenges.
African Liberation Day is recognized on 25th May each year. Events started with a procession from Portersville to the Harlem Plaza on Thursday afternoon. And a creative call promoting responsible fatherhood has been sounded ahead of Father's Day. This, as a former pastor, Paul Moses, launched a song titled Diaries on Wednesday. Moses believes that better fathers will in turn create a better society.
And when they themselves grow up and they establish their own families, they marry, they have children, they emulate those experiences that they witness from us. So the message in the song is that we fathers should be very careful of how we behave. There are too many young men, particularly young boys, who have gone astray. Too many of them are just on the roadside. Too many of them are on drugs. Too many of them are in trouble with the law. Too many of them just riding about aimlessly on motorbikes, having serious accidents, not having steady jobs. And if you look at the circumstances that led to that, in many instances, it is because a father failed them.
The Dominica National Council of Women and the Caribbean Male Action Network, Dominica branch, received copies of the CD to boost their child protection advocacy. The CD is available at Acoustics store. We now join Kenny Williams for your sports highlights.
In sports highlights, former national under-20 men's football coach Don Leogal says while his non-selection to continue coaching the team did not surprise him, he is not pleased with the way he found out. He says he still hoped he would have continued as coach.
To be truth to you, I was a bit disappointed. Although I'm not surprised, of anything that really happened with the DFA. I was appointed the under-20 coach sometime in 2014, somewhere around there, and I worked with the team. And I expected that when the opportunity comes around again that I would be maintained as the coach. Unfortunately, that's not the case. As I said, the DSA is the one responsible for football in Dominica, so they appoint and they dismiss or coaches if they feel that want to go in whatever direction they want to go.
Leogal says although the final decision rests on the shoulders of the DFA, they could employ a better approach in communicating to coaches.
Then after all the controversies we have had over the last couple of years, the now present under-20 coach who was formerly the national coach, the way he was dismissed after the Women's Island tournament. Also to the way the coaches of the women's team was dismissed sometime last year. I thought that the association would have maybe learned from that and do things in a more professional way. Up to this day, nobody from the association, not the president, not the technical director, nobody in the association has said anything to me about me not being retained as a coach. Figure if he thinks something like that, in the future, they may have problems getting coaches, local coaches to, work with national team. If they continue on that trend, they will disenfranchise the whole coaches of the island in the way they are dismissing them. I think it's something that they really need to take stock of and really change the way they operate.
Meantime, the FA boss, Glenn Etienne, says coaches are hired for a certain time period that is usually specified to them. He says it is implied that once the competition is over, the coach's services would not be required unless indicated otherwise.
Mr. Yoga was appointed as coach for a tournament. I mean, when we appoint any coach, it's for a period of time. When I'm appointed for a tournament, the letter they receive would say you are appointed for a tournament where there's men and women from X time to the X time. With all the particulars, the date of the tournament and the location of the tournament, and then the coach would accept or decline. When the coach accepts, it can come there, but it's not that any coach is on contract for a year or two. So going forward, that is something we are looking at. So when you get this letter, the time frame is unless so as long as the tournament is over, the stint of that particular coach ends. If they want to retain the coach for further duty, we send him another letter and tell him that we are going to use him for another tournament or what have you. So I didn't want to say Mr. Eva was fired. No, because we still have plans of using Mr. Eva in other tournament because he was the coach of the under-23 and the under-20.
In basketball, Fashion Line Falcons added another win to their tally when they escaped with a narrow victory in the 2016 DABA League on Wednesday. Leading the game 69-63, Edmund Williams scored a game high of 21 points with 10 rebounds, while Kijuan Thomas assisted with 17. In a losing effort, Joseph Hippolyte scored the most for Signman X-Men with 12 points and 7 rebounds. In the other match, Justina Charles Thunderers defeated Interschool 70-62 in the Division 1 category. Meantime, the league continues on Friday when Kelvedaro Hurricanes and Intelco Security Raiders meet up for play at Portsmouth at 8. At Lindo Park, Detroit Blazers will go head-to-head with Kyrie FM Old School at 7 in the First Division, while at 9, Jays Limited Sonics will take on Detroit Blazers in the Premier Division. Back with more football, Ray Charles Academy Point Michel secured a spot in the semi-finals of the All-Island League with a convincing 6-0 victory over Delton United on Wednesday. Lara Labassiere, Jante Kazemi and Elton Lafels netted twice for Point Michel to help their team qualify for the semi-finals. In another match on Wednesday, Digicel Newtown Juvenile Academy Harlem United hammered Andy Williams Spartan 7-1, also in a qualifying win for the semi-finals. Kimon Coffey and Jean-Louis scored 2 each, with Montel James, Kimon Maglo and Chasley Kernizan getting 1 each for Harlem. Agassi Moro scored for Spartans. Meantime, in the secondary schools Girl Football Championships on Wednesday, Castlebrew Secondary and Convent High played to a 2-all draw. Ethelene Lockhart scored twice for Castlebrew, while Bibisha James and Adela Esprit scored 1 each for Convent High. The State College versus Portsmouth Secondary game didn't take place because PSS failed to show up for that match. In cricket, South Africa could be the host country for the next World T20 series in 2018. This, according to reports from the International Cricket Council. The decision, however, if successful, could place pressure on the South African government to review its recent decision in April to ban Cricket South Africa from bidding to host world events for a year because of failing to meet transformation guidelines. However, ICC members are in support of restoring the WT20 to every 2 years. After the great success of the last WT20 tournament in India, over 80 million in India watched the semi-finals and final games, while there were over 750 million viewers worldwide compared to 250 million during 2015 World Cup. South Africa has not staged any ICC events since 2009 Champions Trophy. That's all the sports for now. I am Kenny Williams. Join us again next time.
Your weather report is next.
Good evening, Dominica, and welcome to tonight's weather broadcast. I'm your presenter, Marshall Alexander. We begin by taking a look at earlier infrared satellite imagery, what it showed. Increased convection across the region today due to the presence of a trough system which continued to pull moisture towards the north across the region. Now taking a look at earlier visible satellite imagery, what it showed. Multi-layered clouds across the region today, and this resulted in partly cloudy to cloudy skies across Dominica. Now taking a look at earlier radar imagery, what it showed. Some scattered showers across the Leeward Islands and off to the east of Dominica, moving towards the west. Tonight's weather is expected to be mostly cloudy with a few scattered showers, and tomorrow's weather is expected to be partly cloudy to cloudy with a few brief scattered showers. Sea conditions are expected to be moderate in open water with waves peaking near 7 feet. Conditions for the next 3 days, we can expect an increase in cloudiness and scattered showers throughout the 3-day period and into the weekend, with the possibility of some isolated thunderstorms by late Saturday into Sunday. As a result, persons in areas prone to flooding, landslides and falling rocks are advised to exercise caution during the weekend. For the rest of the Caribbean tomorrow, we can expect partly cloudy to cloudy skies with some scattered showers across most of the region, with the possibility of some isolated thunderstorms across the extreme southern portion of the island chain. Our international cities forecast, partly cloudy skies can be expected in New York and Miami, some rain expected in London, some thunderstorm activity expected in Caracas, with clear skies expected in Beijing. Sunrise tomorrow will be at 5:34 a.m. and sunset will be at 6:41 p.m. For more information, you can call the weather hotline at 447-5555 or visit our website at weather.gov.dm. Thanks for viewing. Have a good night.
To end the news, the headlines again. International experts to gather here for a regional aviation conference. Government requests more time to respond to local construction sector concerns, and witnesses continue to testify in the Asha James murder trial. Feel free to contact us at news@MarpinNewsMay26th2k16. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Andrea Lee, and to all our viewers around the world, thank you for watching. Join us next time.